Hello everybody, and welcome back to Let's Play Gabriel Knight, the Beast Within. Last time we learned a whole heck of a lot more about Ludwig, and there's something I've been neglecting to do. You notice I'm up here in the library. I actually got stuck because we're supposed to write a letter to Gabriel, but for some reason she wasn't doing it because she said she wanted to find out more. I finally found out what I needed to do, but before I do that, I neglected to note that Grace has a notebook. It's different from Gabriel's tape recorder in that she writes her own notes rather than recording conversations. Let's take a look at that, so we can consolidate the information we've gotten so far.
Gerda says that Gabriel's on a case for Werner Huber, who runs the Gasthof in town. She won't tell me what it's about, though. She says he's staying somewhere near Munich.
So you'll notice that we have different tabs for different subjects. We have Gabriel, Rittersberg, Wolfgang, I think, Ludwig II, I think that's Black Wolf, and then Wagner.
Werner Huber says that Gabriel's case concerns werewolves. Did I mention that Gabriel is a pig? Good thing I'm doing all this for me. Gabriel claims he's doing just fine on the case. He's investigating a suspect at the Hunt Club. He didn't send an address. Fine. I have my own eggs to fry.
And if you want to turn the page, you just click here. And it goes on to Rittersberg, because I guess there's no more about Gabriel, because some of these tabs have several pages.
An interesting note. Seems like I'm hearing from a few different sources that the Ritters aren't the only hunters of evil around. Mr. and Mrs. Smith consider themselves crusaders. There's a group in Brazil, and Mrs. Smith says there are others. Curious. Be on the lookout for this. Maybe they can help teach me a few things. And Gabriel, assuming he can learn.
Let us hope.
Okay, I'm going to log this, even though I have no idea if it's complete garbage or not, just in case it means something later on. Mrs. Smith did Gabriel's tarot, and mine. Basically, she claims that there's this high priestess, a powerful feminine spirit guide, trying to warn Gabriel about this black wolf stuff, and assist him because Gabriel is in deep doo-doo. He supposedly got this dual nature, Dumb and Dumber, and he's going to be going through one of two possible transformations. The spirit guide is trying to help him pick the right one, supposedly not just for him, Gabriel, but for herself and/or someone she represents as well, maybe one of his old creditors.
Okay, so yeah, a little bit more about that high priestess we heard about.
Also, I'm supposed to help by using my positive feeling energy for Gabriel. Unfortunately, I don't have any, so my pissed-off feeling energy will have to do. All this involves a difficult trial, etc. Bottom line, if there is some sort of spiritual guidance for this case out there, I'm more than willing to talk to it. Other than that, I hope Mrs. Smith is wrong about how bleak this all looks. She certainly is wrong about some things, because what she's talking about doesn't sound like a heck of a lot of fun.
Okay, so there's the wolf case here in Rittersberg.
Werner Huber says that there was a werewolf trial in Rittersberg. He thinks it occurred sometime in the 1700s. Think I'll look into it. Victor Ritter's journal. I think I found the werewolf trial Werner mentioned. An entry dated April 20th, 1750 describes how Victor trapped a black wolf that was supposedly a werewolf. Victor wounded it in the chest. It was brought to Rittersberg. Not sure why or what happened next. The Schottenjägers didn't involve themselves in the trial, it seems. Rathaus records. The black wolf caught in 1750 was brought to Rittersberg in order to give it time to regain its human form. They wanted to identify it. Rathaus records. The wolf was kept in the Rathaus dungeon. Rathaus records. The werewolf was tried and sentenced to death. He died in town. Rathaus records. The black wolf that was brought to Rittersberg did transform back into a man. He was identified as Baron von Rollick from Alfing.
So yeah, this is kind of just going over what we've already learned. Grace kind of explains it pretty succinctly.
St. George's Church Records gives Baron von Raulich's last confession. Says before he became a werewolf, he was a real SOB and was nicknamed the Black Wolf. Also had a black wolf on the von Raulich coat of arms. Says he became a werewolf when cursed by a gypsy to live up to his name. Am I going crazy? The Black Wolf is who Christian Ritter was warning Ludwig II about. But that was 1864 and von Raulich died here in 1750? Do all werewolves call themselves that? Definitely need to find out more about the 1864 Black Wolf if possible. St. George's Church Records. There was a letter in the von Raulich file from a lawyer in Buenos Aires. He was requesting information about the case for the family. The envelope had a black seal featuring a wolf. I found a letter in the Werewolf Lore Book. It was dated 1864 and was written by a Schottenjäger, Christian Ritter, to King Ludwig II of Bavaria. It warned him about someone called the Black Wolf. Not sure if it's related to werewolves or not, but the letter was in the Werewolf Book. Find out more about this subject if possible. Christian Ritter's journal confirms that he was after a werewolf and had connected him with someone called the Black Wolf. Doesn't look like he ever got him, though, because the entries end there, and his date of death is given as 4 March 1864, same date as the letter. If he died for the letter, it was in vain. The original's still sitting here. I'm pretty sure Ludwig never saw it. Guess that old Ritter curse was doing its thing. Dahlmeier. The 1864 Black Wolf that was mentioned in Christian Ritter's letter to Ludwig was probably a man named Paul Godin. At least Godin lived in Prussia at that time, had that nickname, and was well connected. Godin was from abroad, but claimed to be from high Germanic blood. He was a spy for Bismarck. This is somewhat disappointing, since the name Godin means nothing to me. Guess I was expecting enlightenment or something. Dahlmeier. Godin was granted a royal title and lands in 1870 by Bismarck. What did he do to deserve it? Dahlmeier. No trace of Godin after his entitlement, probably because his name changed. New name would appear on entitlement deed.
Perhaps the name Godin doesn't mean anything to us now, but the actual person of Godin will.
Werner Huber says that Ludwig II was the last true king Bavaria had. Says he was a genius, built castles. Politicians declared him insane and he was arrested. Werner thinks he was murdered. Obviously, Werner's opinions are one thing, but I need to find out some facts. Mrs. Smith thinks that Christian Ritter's letter to Ludwig about the Black Wolf and her own warning about the Black Wolf so soon thereafter are pointing the way to Ludwig. She says I should look into him. While I may not totally buy her logic, I can't help but agree with her. Neuschwanstein. Ludwig lived from 1845 to 1886. He built 3 castles. Wagner seems to have had a major effect on Ludwig's life. Find out more about that. Neuschwanstein. Ludwig was bankrupted after spending extravagantly on construction. Neuschwanstein. Ludwig and his whole family were devout Catholics. His private chapel contains images of the Black Madonna of Altötting, Mary figure, and St. Louis of France. He apparently had a thing for the French monarchy, but at one point had all the Louis images in all of his castles covered up. Mean something? Neuschwanstein. Ludwig was really into swans and lilies. They represented purity and majesty. Later in life, he became more and more reclusive. Didn't even want servants to look at him. Neuschwanstein. Weird. Ludwig wanted his castles destroyed after his death. I wonder why. Neuschwanstein. Ludwig studied the occult. Also, he withdrew from his state duties, wanted to be a real king, but didn't have much power under Prussia. I should find out more about Bavaria's relationship with Prussia. Neuschwanstein. There are paintings in the Singer's Hall portraying scenes from an unknown story, scenes involving a wolf. More than that, the story looks like a werewolf story to me. Plus, these paintings aren't the original paintings. Ludwig had these put in later, covering the old ones up. Perhaps I'm letting my imagination overrun my objectivity. What story are these scenes from? Why did Ludwig have a sudden affinity with a wolf, possible werewolf story?
And I should probably let you know, I didn't really mention this before because I'd forgotten about it, but like when we go to Neuschwanstein, that place is real. Like everything that we're seeing are like photographed from the actual castle. However, at the very end, all those pictures of the werewolves, those are not there. The original pictures are still there. This is just sort of for story purposes. So if you do go to Neuschwanstein, you'll see the original paintings. Nothing about werewolves.
Mrs. Smith and I discussed my Ludwig dream. She says the dream confirms that Gabriel's spirit guide is linked somehow to Ludwig, and that the spirit guide is powerful. It reached unpsychic me through a dream. She also thinks the wolves symbolize the danger we're being warned about. Like I couldn't figure that much out myself. Herrn Chiemsee. Ludwig had a good friend, Empress Elizabeth of Austria. Her letters mention a new friend of Ludwig's, 1865, and in 1878, Ludwig being tormented in some way which he won't tell her about. Herrn Chiemsee. Ludwig's notes to his servants. Pretty whacked. This was not a happy man. He mentions needing money, and he's obviously pissed off at someone named Louis, 1881. He talks about the great friend visiting, and that they aren't to be disturbed, also 1881. Herrn Chiemsee. Ludwig kept a diary. It might explain his torment. I need to get a hold of this, if at all possible. It ought to provide better clues than I found anywhere else. I forgot. Last night I dreamt Ludwig rescued me from a pack of wolves in a sleigh. It was in the woods at night, and the sleigh he was in looks just like his real sleigh, which I saw in the museum. How could I have dreamt it so accurately when I've never seen the sleigh before? I never even knew that he took sleigh rides.
Remember that somebody is trying to contact us and tell us something.
Herrn Chiemsee. After Ludwig died, Elizabeth of Austria wrote to a bishop thanking him for helping her fulfill Ludwig's last wishes. What were they? I hate the fact that everyone who might know any of these answers is dead. Herrn Chiemsee. Notes on Ludwig's death, June 12, 1886. Ludwig knew the conspirators were coming to arrest him because they'd been there once before. He'd asked for the key to the tower, supposedly to commit suicide. He never made it to the tower, but was instead arrested for insanity. He was taken to Berg by carriage, and on the way they stopped at a place called Seeshaupt. Ludwig talked to the postmistress there, but no one knows what he said.
And something I had actually missed, the one thing I think I missed in the tour of Neuschwanstein was the fact that the first room actually has that door that he tried to escape to that leads to the tower, and the tour tape says something about, nobody knows why he's going up to, but it was assumed that he was going to kill himself. But there might be something else up in that tower that he was trying to get to.
Herrn Chiemsee, June 13th, 1886. Ludwig and his doctor went out for a walk and never returned. They were both found drowned in the nearby lake. Murder or suicide?
They were both found drowned.
Herrn Chiemsee. Notes on Ludwig's death. His funeral was on June 18th, 1886. The whole country went into shock. Guess they were pretty crazy about him despite his bizarre ways. At least the common people were. His body is entombed in the Wittelsbacher crypt at St. Michael's Church in Munich. His heart was placed in an urn in the pilgrimage chapel at Altötting. Dahlmeier says Ludwig's most important act politically was to sign away independent Bavarian statehood to Prussia in 1870. It must have killed him. He was so into absolute monarchy. Why did he do it? Dahlmeier doesn't know. Says maybe he was manipulated.
Why did he do that?
Dahlmeier says Ludwig's diary is filled with entries vehemently swearing off an activity, but not naming that activity. Clearly, Ludwig had a secret, tormenting guilt. Biographers generally interpret this guilt as sexual guilt, but Dahlmeier thinks it was something else. Doesn't know what. Could it be related to the Black Wolf and/or Ludwig's spiritual unrest? It seems to me that if something tormented Ludwig that much in his lifetime, it's likely to be the same thing tormenting his spirit in the afterlife. Assuming Mrs. Smith is correct and he is tormented. Dahlmeier. Bismarck was the Prussian Kaiser's chancellor during Ludwig's reign. He supposedly had spies in Ludwig's household and was rumored to be involved in the conspiracy to rule Ludwig insane. Obviously, he would benefit by Ludwig signing over Bavarian statehood to Prussia. How did he get Ludwig to do it? Dahlmeier says he was a genius at playing people's weaknesses. Ludwig certainly had a few that could be played upon. Dahlmeier says Ludwig's diary is in the royal archives and no one was allowed to see it. The only one who saw it was a biographer, Chappell.
Yeah, and we actually have that biography. And perhaps we'll need to get a hold of Chappell to see if he can't tell us more about what he read in the diary.
Dahlmeier says Ludwig took his train or sleigh out at night because he was restless. Sometimes even the motion of the sleigh wouldn't be enough, and he'd stop and go wandering alone in the woods for hours. Tell me, friends and neighbors, what do you think he did out in the woods at night alone? Dahlmeier says Ludwig's hunting accident involved Ludwig being bitten by a wolf. His servants claim Ludwig was never the same after that the fever from the bite broke his mind. They suspected the wolf was diseased. Perhaps they were right. Last night, a man and woman from Pennsylvania showed up at the castle to meet the Schottenjäger. The woman, Mrs. Smith, seemed to go into a trance and warned me about the Black Wolf. 3 black wolves? That's a little hard to believe. I'll keep this under the Black Wolf section until I learn more about it. Mrs. Smith claims to not know anything about the Black Wolf. She says she was channeling the message from someone else. She says she doesn't know who, but that the force was very powerful. She wants to help get to the bottom of it. I suppose I could use the help, even if she is a bit odd. Yeah, and the Grand Canyon's a bit deep.
Hey, Mrs. Smith's awesome.
Neuschwanstein. The entire castle is decorated on themes from classical heroic German dramas, a taste Ludwig shared with composer Richard Wagner. In fact, most of the stories illustrated at Neuschwanstein are ones Wagner wrote operas about. Herren Chiemsee. Ludwig supported Wagner financially, called him the great friend. Herren Chiemsee. Ludwig wrote a letter to the Munich conductor in 1882 telling him to prepare for a new Wagner opera, but then refused to see the man. Nothing more was ever heard about this new opera. Was there something new, or was Ludwig crazy? Dahlmeier. When Wagner visited Ludwig at Neuschwanstein, the 2 men would lock themselves up in the singers' hall. The servants report horrible sounds coming from behind the closed doors, unearthly and heartbreaking. What were they doing? Wagner Museum. Apparently Wagner liked to live luxuriously and had run into considerable debt before Ludwig adopted him as patron late in Wagner's life. Georg says Ludwig saved the music. I'd say Wagner owed him one. Wagner Museum. One of the last things Wagner was working on was something with a Monsieur Beaujolais. In a letter dated September 1881, they discussed acoustics, sound waves, and crystals. Wagner Museum. On Wagner's desk at the time of his death was a diagram of the Wittelsbacher Theater in Munich, one with every possible measurement taken. Acoustics? Wagner Museum. Ludwig writes to Wagner June 1881 in an excited state, asking him to come at once and in great secrecy. He says he felt something that night at a performance. A Wagner performance? Felt what? Surely he heard enough Wagner operas by then not to get that excited. Wagner Museum. Wagner writes to Ludwig July 1882, saying he and Monsieur Beaujolais have finished the diagram. He says 8 figures are to be made from it and installed in the theater exactly according to the diagram. Wagner Museum. Wagner died on Ash Wednesday, 1883.
It actually seems that's about it. Wow, that was 20 minutes. Sorry about that. I'll do a couple more things before we end off, because I don't want the whole thing being the notes. Just the things I missed. Skip all this. Get in the car. Now, there's a couple things I failed to talk to Georg about. So let's do that now.
Have you ever heard about the wolf panels in the Singers' Hall at Neuschwanstein?
Did my brother send you here?
No.
Probably not. It's only the letter to the conductor, the wolf panels. Ah, my brother thinks I am crazy because of all my theories.
What theories?
This is Quatsch. If there was a lost opera, a lost Wagner opera, and if one could find it, to a conductor, this would be like finding King Tut's tomb. But people have looked for it before. If it ever existed, it is gone forever. My brother says I waste my time even thinking about it.
I think there's something to it.
I'm curious. Is there any other information that points to the lost opera besides Ludwig's letter and the wolf panels?
It's nothing. I'm not even supposed to have seen it. You see, my brother says that Wagner was too egotistical to have produced a lost opera. If he was working on something new, every person in Bayreuth would have heard about it. On the other hand, it was in Ludwig's character to have wanted a private opera.
But it wouldn't have been private. Ludwig's letter shows he intended it to be played in Munich.
Yes, but that it would get so far without Wagner telling others? Why keep it a secret?
Maybe there was a very good reason for secrecy.
For example?
Like... Never mind.
So what was with all the secrecy? That is very interesting. This keeps coming back to that lost opera. What is that about? Alright, so back to Rittersberg for that little conversation with Goethe.
Hi, Gerda. I'm back. Good.
Aww. They're BFFs now.
Gerda,
Yes?
have you heard from Gabriel at all?
No, Grace, I'm sorry.
Never mind.
And special permit.
Gerda, do you have any idea where I could get a government research permit? I don't have time for a lot of red tape.
You should ask Herr Übergrau. He can maybe get such things very fast.
You think? I was going to write Gabriel today anyway.
And I think that's the one thing I was missing right there. Like, the one big thing is about writing Gabriel. And, well, also the conversation with Georg, because it gives us some important insight. Anyway, sorry that most of this episode was the notes. I didn't realize they'd be so long, but they are very, very important. What she wrote were the things that you really do need to know in order to figure out this mystery. So, what more can we do before we write to Gabriel? Well, you're just going to have to find out next time on Let's Play Gabriel Knight, the Beast Within. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.